What if I told you that the heart of an ancient city was not its walls, but its people? Across civilizations, from the bustling agoras of Greece to the quiet whispers of a Tang Dynasty tea house, societies were shaped by places where people gathered, debated, and lived. Behind the grand battles and legendary rulers, there were the unseen moments that defined history. What truly drove these civilizations forward? Trade, war, or the bonds of trust and ambition? Step beyond the myths, discover the untold stories of ancient life. The Vikings, raiders, traders, and settlers, feared across the seas, yet devoted to the bonds of home and family. A Viking's life was not just war. Behind every battle was a home, a village where warriors became fathers, husbands, and leaders. A place ruled not by a king, but by the will of the people. Viking society was built on honor and law. Disputes were not settled with swords, but with words. At the Thing, every voice mattered, but an oath once sworn could never be broken. Marriage was more than love. It was an alliance, a bond between families, sealed with mead and feasting. But a Viking woman was no servant. She held power, land, and the right to choose her fate. But peace never lasted long. When the call to war came, there was no hesitation. A Viking's fate was not to grow old, but to die with honor and feast in Valhalla. In the heart of the Mesoamerican jungle, a boy was not born a man. He had to prove himself worthy. Among the Maya, adulthood was not granted by age, but earned through sacred trials. The journey to adulthood was no simple step. It was a test, a trial of strength, wisdom, and sacrifice. Only those who endured would be recognized as true members of their people. Blood was life, and to give it was an honor. In the eyes of the gods, suffering was proof of devotion. A drop of blood today meant the strength of a warrior tomorrow. Survival was the greatest test. Alone in the jungle, a child had to prove his worth, to hunt, to endure, to conquer. His fear, to fail, was to return in shame. And at last they stood before their ancestors, no longer children, but warriors, healers, leaders. Their old names were forgotten. A new life had begun. But adulthood was not just about survival. It was about knowledge. In the endless roads of the East, here, the world was not divided but connected. The Silk Road, more than a trade route, it was a meeting place of civilizations, where ideas traveled as far as gold and silk. It was not just goods that crossed. These roads, alongside silk and spices, the Silk Road carried knowledge, faith, and ambition, uniting empires and shaping the world as we know it. Where merchants rested, ideas thrived. Here, Buddhism traveled to China, mathematics spread from India, and ancient Greek philosophy found new life in the libraries of Baghdad. But the road was not always safe. Bandits lurked in the shadows, and powerful empires fought to control these trade routes. To travel the Silk Road was to risk everything, but the rewards were limitless. No civilization remained untouched. The Silk Road did not just move goods, it blended cultures, creating something entirely new. In every market, in every port, the world was reshaped, but the journey of knowledge was far from over. Power has always been shaped by human interaction, but before emperors and warriors, there was a place where democracy was born. The Agora, the beating heart of ancient Greek cities, more than just a marketplace, it was where minds met, fortunes were made, and the course of history was decided. Here, Socrates questioned everything. Merchants bartered for the finest olive oil, and politicians swayed the people with words that could build or destroy empires. But the Agora was more than a market. It was the foundation of democracy. With a single vote, a leader could Rise or be exiled forever. Not all voices were noble. Deals were made in the shadows, betrayals sealed with silver. The same space that fostered democracy also bred conspiracy. From the open-air agoras of Greece to a quieter stage in the East, a place where ideas were not shouted across a crowd, but whispered over a cup of tea. During the Tang Dynasty, tea houses were more than places to drink. They were where art, philosophy, and politics intertwined. A simple tea house could shape the fate of an empire. Here, poets found inspiration, scholars debated Confucian ideals, and officials shaped policy with careful words. The Tang tea house was a silent battlefield, where the sharpest minds clashed without ever raising a sword. But not all words were spoken openly. Hidden among the poetry and philosophy were whispers of ambition, secret alliances, and betrayals sealed with a silent nod. In a world where words held power, a single poem could inspire a revolution or mark a man for exile. Ideas did not stop at China's borders, from the hushed whispers of tea houses in the East to the grandeur of the eternal city. Rome, vast, powerful, and divided between those who feasted and those who struggled to survive. Behind these walls, Rome was a city of contrasts. For the elite, life was a never-ending feast, but for the common people, survival was a daily battle. For the wealthy, the night was filled with indulgence. A single dinner could cost more than a laborer's yearly wage, but power was the real currency of Rome, traded over wine and whispered across marble tables. But outside the grand halls, most Romans lived in insulae, crumbling apartments stacked high like towers. Fire, disease, and hunger were constant threats, yet life persisted in the shadows of the elite. Rome's streets were never silent for long. When the people starved, they made their voices heard, and when the voices were ignored, revolts followed. The samurai, warriors of Japan, were feared on the battlefield, but behind the sword lay a life bound by strict codes and unbreakable loyalty. Samurai were more than warriors. They were protectors, scholars, and rulers. Each clan lived by Bushido, the way of the warrior, a code that demanded loyalty, even beyond death. For a samurai, marriage was not about love, but duty. Alliances between clans were sealed not with ink, but with vows. Loyalty was absolute. A samurai who lost his master faced only two paths, vengeance or seppuku, the ultimate act of honor. But not all samurai chose death. Some became ronin, masterless warriors, forced to find a new path. A samurai without a clan was a man without a purpose.